Welcome to the quest for the Green Bowl, the rise of Ralu Azath. And welcome, my Green Bowl opponents, the top-seeded elite mother tuckers who survived a very low-scoring battle with AR's ayahuasca plant to reach this ultimate week. What's going on, man? You feeling good being the first number one seed to make the championship here?
I figured I'm setting records left and right here. Why not set a new one with having a number one seed go to the finals?
You talk about records, 14 wins in a row, obviously a growing record, 14-1 right now as your overall record, best ever, obviously, regardless of what happens. Clearly the favorite based on the records and all the success. But you didn't really have all that great at times. In the semifinals, there was a lot of back and forth. You lost Jalen Hurts and Tyler Lockett, which isn't great. George Kittle had a big touchdown game on Saturday, which definitely made things interesting. But then Sunday came, and I'm sure this is really awesome for you. Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones both struggling so poorly. You being a Bears fan, I'm sure that was pretty nice to see.
There were no tears shed over that one at all. so yeah, that felt pretty good. And Devontae Adams only having like 15 yards, I think it was. That played a huge part because I was shaking in my boots a little bit during most of that game. But I kind of thought with the weather conditions being what they were projecting it, I didn't think he was going to have a big game anyway. I wasn't expecting it to be like that, though.
That's why I made that last change to put in Minshew over Carr, because I was like, I think I'm going to need it.
The Raiders just made that same move,
exactly. Yeah. I got to say, though, obviously after that, it looked like everything was on your side. But then Sunday night comes and you needed fourth quarter magic. Tom Brady and Suckup were not doing what you needed. You were thinking you were going to need a lot of stuff on Monday, but they got enough, and it went to overtime, and they essentially made it so that Eckler could finish the job for you. So, what was going through your head during that crazy ride that you had to go through?
Well, I don't know if I watched a Sunday night game closer than I did last week. Seeing I think Brady threw 2 or 3 interceptions in the game, and in the fourth quarter he had less than a point. I was freaking out a little bit, and I think my total at that point was I only had 35 points going into the fourth quarter, and then I only ended up needing 10 points to tie, and then 11 to win or something like that. So that was definitely a roller coaster of a ride. Every time Suckup was hitting those field goals, I felt pretty good. I was hoping he was going to outscore Gold, but I can't remember if he did outscore him or if they scored just about the same. So, never underestimate the kickers, especially in championship mode time. So, but going into Monday night, I did feel fairly confident in it. I was counting every 10th of a yard as it was going, ticking down. But as I was telling you before, that was probably the most fun I had in a football weekend because it was such a back and forth roller coaster ride, and it was a lot of fun with that.
And a lot at stake too. Remember when you said Eckler was being a bit of a smeghead earlier this season when he struggled? He's been stepping up for you now.
I lost, the 1 week I lost, he was being a smeghead. Because I think I only lost by a few points too. I don't think it was a major major loss or anything. So if he wasn't being such a smeghead, we might be talking 15 in a row.
Yeah, so you might be talking perfection right now.
Yeah. That's okay. I can deal with 85 Bears type lore right now.
Yeah, that's definitely what you got going. And obviously Eckler's been stepping up for you. You did need him to have a big game because you had Josh Jacobs have a rare down game, and you had all those injuries, which never is great when you're in the playoffs. But how are you feeling right now about your team? You might be getting a little healthier. What are you feeling about your team going into this Green Bowl against me?
Well, you've got a pretty good team, so I'm looking at that and saying, you could go off, my team could go off. We might be talking. I know projections say what they say, but both of us are capable of putting 140 points up in a single week. So, I'm starting to get a little bit healthier. I watched Jalen Hurts throw a football yesterday. It didn't look that pretty. So I saw a video on Twitter. I was like, "Ooh, that he like short armed it and didn't
Yeah.
look so great." And who knows with Tyler Lockett if he's going to do it. My biggest concern right now is, do I start Josh Jacobs because he's going against
Yeah.
probably one of the best run defenses in football right now? So
Yeah.
there are concerns, but also that bit of excitement because at any moment, any of these players can go off and that would be it. So
Yeah.
how are you feeling with all this stuff?
I have that similar quandary with Nick Chubb, but it's hard to bench your studs when they've done so well and they're going to get goal line carries. But it's just he's going up against Washington, so I have that similar thing where it's like, and they're out of the playoffs. Like, are they going to give Hunt more? I don't know. It's an interesting one because the players could say all they want. We're going to play and we're going to do this, but if the team decides to shut you down, then what are you going to do?
Yeah, you can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah, and and it's like one of those things where I have this fear that DeAndre Swift's going to score 40 points on my bench, even though he's been up and down all year, and it's like,
yeah,
but it's just hard. It's hard to bench your studs in the finals.
it is. And if I'm remembering right, I was thinking like if I was putting together my draft strategy, if Swift was there at like 10 or 11, I would have thought about picking him up.
Yeah, I mean, I traded for him, and to be honest, he helped me win one game. So to me, the trade was a success just because of that.
Yeah.
Like
he was looking like one of those studs too for a little bit, and then I don't know did he get hurt? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, he was hurt, and they've just kind of been being cautious with him. Like the Lions obviously didn't think they were going to be in a playoff race, and they're hoping that he's fully healthy next year, I think.
Yeah. Hey, and he was when he's on, he's a stud. So that was a good move on your part for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, like he helped me win one game, and what am I going to ask for? I wasn't trading for someone to be the ultimate stud. Like that rarely happens, but it's just especially when you're trying to
like there's collusion.
Yeah, well, and like it's like to get another stud, you usually got to trade one of yours, and it's like people are asking for Justin Jefferson, and I'm like, no, not happening. No, he's like number one wide receiver right now.
He's. I think he is the number one receiver. Yeah. He's got most targets, most receiving yards, and most touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken.
Not most touchdowns. If he did, he'd be really going nuts. But he's he's got a shot to get 2,000 yards if he has two more 130-yard games. I think. Like so.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, no one's ever done that. So that's pretty insane.
Yeah,
I do have to say for you, obviously the top goal, winning it all. But what will your legacy for your team be this season, win or lose? I mean, you got all these records. You've done well. You've made it here, first time in this league. What do you think your legacy is going to be? Do you think it's going to be tarnished if you lose?
Absolutely tarnished if you don't win. It's like the 72 or 73-9 Golden State Warriors. They have the best record of all time in the regular season. They didn't win it.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal to win. It's more about money, and talking about bragging rights and everything like that. You can have all these accolades and whatnot, but it is what it is in the end. If you don't win the last game of the year, who cares?
Yeah, there you go. And of course, one of us will have a Green Bowl MVP every season. One player from the Green Bowl championship squad gets crowned with this ultimate moniker. And it's not a season-long MVP because we're going to have the top wideouts and all that based on points. Every position kind of has their top player, and you kind of know, and there's all kinds of variations. But the Green Bowl MVP is actually based on the fantasy points and the impact in all of the playoff games. With the Green Bowl obviously has more of an emphasis. So there's definitely certain people on our team that we could be looking at. Obviously, Eckler had a great game last week for you. So if he does something like that again and you win, you got to think about him. I have Jefferson and Waddle. Nick Chubb had a decent game. So if they all do nuts, like that could be for me. But it could also be anyone else. If they have a really crazy game, even if they had a down game last week, it doesn't matter. The Green Bowl obviously is going to be the thing. So for our segment this week, I wanted us to look at all the other Green Bowl MVPs and see what, especially with you being a league rookie, see what you think about them. If you think that they were a worthy MVP, if you think that it's just luck, or maybe maybe they were still kind of a weak MVP for that season. So So let's get out your notebooks. We're going to have a history lesson. Okay, so let's go through the results for the 7 previous Green Bowl MVPs, learn about greatness, of course, and we'll be using 2 quotes from one of my favorite sci-fi shows, Doctor Who. If you think, and these will be easy quotes to remember, hopefully, if you think it was a strong MVP, like you think like, oh yeah, that was a great MVP, you will say a one good solid hope's worth a cartload of certainties. That's from State of Decay, an episode from the that was from the 4th Doctor, I believe.
Okay.
And then if you think it's a weak MVP, you will say sometimes the only choices you have are bad ones, but you still have to choose. That's from the 12th Doctor, the Mummy on the Orient Express episode. Right. So let's get right into it. 2015. Wide receiver Allen Robinson earned the Green Bowl MVP in our inaugural year. You remember him? He was on the Bears for a while.
Yeah, I remember him. I'm trying. Was that the year he was with Jacksonville?
Yes, he was with Jacksonville. He was on Tunnel Snakes Rule, now known as Loki Lebowski Thor. He was called Tunnel Snakes Rule back then, a Fallout reference. And he had a great matchup against the Saints with Allen Robinson. He had kind of been hoping to make the championship and to have that. Yeah, and he definitely had a couple of decent games there. 57 yards and a TD in the semifinals, helped Tunnel Snakes Rule beat the Dreamcats. The Green Bowl was even different. 151 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown, a 91-yard score. Pretty much sealed the win. Tunnel Snakes beat former league member The Noise 97.84 to 72.66. So Robinson's game really helped get that win.
That one catch right there. You're not kidding. That catch right there
in the Green Bowl. Yeah, I remember. It was one of those crazy things. I actually lived with Tunnel Snakes Rule back then. We were roommates, and he came back from work, and I was just like, "Did you see that Robinson catch?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." He was so excited. He was watching it at work or whatever, listening at least. And
hey, you do what you got to do sometimes. Allen Robinson, if we're talking pre-Bears, like he was probably one of the most sought-after wide receivers the year he was a free agent. So I would say good solid hope is worth a good solid. Is it hope?
Yeah, is it good solid hope's worth a
load of
certainty. Yeah,
certainty. Yeah, for that for sure. If we're talking, was that the year they went to the AFC Championship game too?
No, actually, I think they were having a bad year that year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, I know what he was before he got to the Bears, and he was probably definitely a worthy MVP candidate at that point in time.
So obviously you're thinking Robinson was good. I agree. I think that was a hell of a couple of games. This one, I don't know, maybe we'll disagree because it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. 2016, the most unlikely of MVPs for former league member Meow Master. It's a tight end, and it's the only tight end that has ever won Green Bowl MVP and might ever win Green Bowl MVP. At least we'll see this year. But Charles Clay, who was on Buffalo at the time. First of all, it was a lucky year for Meow Master. They left in 3-0s in the quarterfinals because they rarely played all year, and somehow they still won, and then they ended up winning it all. And Clay was a big reason. They didn't even have a tight end in their lineup, one of the zeros in that quarterfinal. There was a little bit of collusion that is thought of that allowed Meow Master to magically pick up players for the semifinals, including Clay, the tight end, and have it in her lineup. Didn't play all year, suddenly plays in the semifinals. Clay had 72 yards and a touchdown to help her beat my Grundle Drashigs, of course, now known as the Dark Ridge Dreamers. Beat me by only 8 points. So, yes, that tight end helped. And then Clay decided to go off for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Green Bowl to take down the multiple scoregasms, 123.16 to 114.8. So, yes, once again, Clay was the reason for the victory.
I mean,
and there were other players that were big, but it was just hard to ignore how this tight end essentially led Meow Master to the title. So, what are your thoughts on Clay?
I'd have to say sometimes all you have is bad choices, but you still got to pick one. I don't. The player himself isn't really sticking out in my mind as somebody who's like an all-time great or anything. It's not like a Tony Gonzalez or anything like that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, obviously.
I couldn't even tell you who he played for, to be honest. So,
he was on Buffalo this year, but
okay, yeah, that's right. You said Buffalo already, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that's probably a great choice. But if MVP, sometimes they just come out at the right time.
Yeah, and a funny aside, the multiple scoregasms put a claim in on Charles Clay too, but lost because Meow Master was seated lower. So, so the collusion hurt both of us.
Yeah, seriously.
And the person knows who they are. They're still in the league. They're still in the league, but everything's okay now. Everything's cool. It's been talked about. I could still mess with them, though, about it.
Oh, absolutely. I think you should all the time.
In 2017, we had not just the Green Bowl MVP, but the Comeback Player of the Year. Mighty Mash Tons, now known as Loki Lebowski Thor. Running back Todd Gurley. He was on the Rams. This was Sean McVay's first season as coach, I believe. So he got into his system. And to be honest, this was a true no-brainer for MVP. Gurley was a maniac. He had 180 yards and 4 touchdowns in the semifinals. That's 42 points for the Mash Tons in a win. They won by 37 points, but it's going to help when you have somebody scoring 42. And then all he did to follow that up in the Green Bowl, 276 yards and 2 touchdowns, 39.6 points. As the Mash Tons won 106.26 to 94.74 to beat former league member Mick Giblets. So what are your thoughts on Todd Gurley here, just having the season of a lifetime?
I mean, Todd Gurley was a stud until he wasn't. He was. I mean, he was one of those guys you wanted to pick up, even in his rookie year, coming off the ACL stuff. You wanted to pick up Todd Gurley. Yeah. So I gotta tell you, the first option is definitely in play. The good choices. He's definitely a great choice with that.
Yeah,
and I'm doing my best to remember what it is, but one good solid hope is worth a cartload of
certainties.
Certainties, yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
He is definitely. He was a stud. I never got a chance to pick him up. So, and the year that I did pick him up, I think I had it was his last year playing, and he was not the Todd Gurley.
Yeah, because of injuries, and again, I talked about comeback player. He was the number 1 overall pick in fantasy the year before, I believe, and he struggled mightily because the Rams were terrible that year. Everybody just stacked the box. McVay comes in, and suddenly Gurley is an absolute monster. So I believe he fell to the second round, I believe, to the Mash Tons that year. I'd have to double check that, but he definitely wasn't the top pick anymore.
Yeah, if I think about it, that's probably around the time the Cooper Kupp got into the league.
Yes.
So they were probably able to start to spread it out a little bit more, knowing what he is.
Yeah, I mean, Gurley got everything that year. Touchdowns, everything. He was a maniac. Yeah. I believe he was number 1 running back that year.
Yeah.
So next we move on to 2018. Another running back, Christian McCaffrey. He was on Carolina, of course, at the time. Former league member Meow Master once again lucked out this season, as she did in her previous championship. McCaffrey obviously stepped up in a big way, though, to lead her to the title. McCaffrey had 101 yards and 2 touchdowns to lead Meow Master over the multiple scoregasms, and 120 yards. Oh, I got you back. 120 yards and also a 50-yard passing touchdown in the semifinals, because we know McCaffrey can throw the ball too. That led her to a win over the Mighty Mash Tons. And then, of course, 178 yards, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it was her leading player in the Green Bowl to lead her over Green Acres by less than 4 points, 102.34 to 98.46. And before we get our thoughts on this, I do want to add that this was the year that the multiple scoregasms set the record for league points in a season that you broke. Also, the Mash Tons and Green Acres scored a lot of points too this year. Like they were well over. They weren't scoregasms level, but they were also close to 1,500. So all three were like juggernauts. And the fact that Meow Master lucked out with some games where she didn't play team players and won like 50 to 48 because the other team didn't play players. A really annoying year when you think of. I hated that. That's why they're a former league member, because too many times of not playing players and messing up all the standings. But she did have this juggernaut because of McCaffrey. So what are your thoughts on McCaffrey in 2018?
McCaffrey, outside of the year or two that he got hurt, I mean, he's always, even this year, he's still a stud. He's somebody that you would still, I would say probably this year would have been a better pick than Jonathan Taylor at number one or whoever was,
It was Taylor. It was Taylor who owns it.
Yeah.
Big bust for the scoregasms, I'm sure. Yeah, they know.
You kind of feel bad, but it's not entirely Jonathan Taylor's fault either.
No.
But yeah, he's still a stud because he's catching it out of the backfield, and then he can rush for it. He's pretty much the only offense that the Panthers had.
Yeah.
And I had him in a couple of leagues after that. He wasn't quite as good for me. Yeah. I think I got him in the injury-plagued year.
Yeah.
Where he only played like in 4 games, I think.
Yeah.
Ended up being a bust and number one pick. But I would think he's definitely a stud. I'm sorry, I'm going to go off this again. So one good solid hope is worth a cart full of certainties.
Yeah.
He is for sure that solid number one guy. I would really believe that. I think he's a solid MVP choice.
Yeah, I have to agree. That was a hell of a year when somebody like that leads you in all 3 playoff games too. That's not something you see often. Usually it's the 2 games or maybe just the finals, but all 3 games. That was top player on her team. Like that's a stud for you.
It becomes a cheat code eventually. Yeah.
Speaking of cheat codes, 2019, the year of Lamar Jackson, first quarterback on our list. Obviously was a rookie maniac that year because he rushed the ball. Risky Business was a league rookie that season, and Jackson led Risky Business to the title. He did. This was another player that did it all 3 games. Quarterfinals, 145 passing yards, 40 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Pretty solid. Risky Business had a 4-point win over Natty Ice Baby, now known as the Clash at Demon Head. Jackson then led Risky Business over the multiple scoregasms, 212 passing yards, 86 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns in the semifinals. That's just
we're talking total touchdowns, passing and rushing.
Yes.
Oof.
And they were actually all passing, which everybody was confused about. He suddenly became a great player.
Yeah, okay.
To finish the job, Jackson had 238 passing yards, 103 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns in the Green Bowl. That's just insane. Risky Business. And at the time, Risky Business had the highest Green Bowl score ever, dominating Meow Master, 148.72 to 74.82. So what are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson as the 2019 Green Bowl MVP?
I mean, it's hard to say anything, but he's the right choice with all those things. But when you think about a quarterback, you're normally thinking like 300 yards passing or something like that. But you're talking a guy who can do it with his legs. And it wasn't that the year like everybody was like, oh, Lamar Jackson's just a running back playing quarterback, something like that.
Nobody thought he was going to be good.
Nobody thought, and it's just one of those situations. Again, it's you're putting one good solid hope is worth a cart. Boy, I'm having a really hard time with these.
I'm sure everybody will have fun with that. We do our best on these Zoom calls.
About time I start screwing something up, right?
After the season you've had?
Yeah, seriously. This is well warranted again. Everybody's going to be like, yep, this guy deserves it.
Yep. Let's
Yeah,
move
definitely
on.
choice for MVP though.
Yeah. Let's move on to 2020. Former league member Galgal had Dalvin Cook this year, of course, still on the Vikings. This was Galgal's first title and only title in a year where they also lucked out because they had multiple wins where the other team also left in buys. We're talking like 40 to 30 wins, just ridiculous and
Oh
embarrassing
my
for our
god.
league. But he won the title, and you got to give it to him. Cook had 149 yards and a touchdown to help Galgal beat Uncle Justy by 12 points in the semifinals. He added 85 yards and a touchdown in the Green Bowl to help Galgal beat Remember the Titans 92.3 to 87.08. Not actually crazy numbers, but Cook got the job done and was the leader on Galgal. Thoughts on him being 2020 Green Bowl MVP?
You think of the numbers game, like you said, not outstanding numbers. I mean, because you're talking what 14 points.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking MVP, I'm thinking more along the lines what like a Lamar Jackson would have had with those 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, whatever it was, and that alone right there is 20 points. Mm-hmm. My guess is judging by the numbers that he had. Sometimes all you got is bad choices, and you just got to choose one.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to down Cook or anything like that. Cook's what is it? Cooks or Cook? Cook. Yeah. So I'm not trying to down him, just because I'm a Bears fan and he plays for the Vikings and whatnot. Yeah. But just having like 14 points, that's for a overall score. That's something he should have been getting on a regular basis.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where that year, Remember the Titans was the favorite going in because he traded and got Justin Jefferson and he had Tyreek Hill, and
oh man,
he had a hell of a team, and everybody expected to win, especially with Galgal scoring low all season, not playing players, not really coaching.
Yeah.
Just one of those games where Remember the Titans didn't get what he was supposed to get. And Cook did the job. But I agree. I think Cook was actually one of our weaker MVPs, all like you look at all of them. I think the weakest MVP.
Yeah. Well, so, even worse than tight end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I still have bad dreams about that. Finally, last season, 2021, we get our second quarterback to make the list. Remember the Titans rode on the backs of Joe Burrow. Still leads the Bengals, of course. Mm-hmm. Didn't start Burrow in the quarterfinals, but did enough to win. But Burrow was his starter in the semifinals and finals, and definitely a reason why he won. Joe Burrow finished with 525 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, including a 50-plus yard touchdown, 48.1 points to lead Remember the Titans over former league member Galgal, getting a little revenge there. You see that?
Yeah.
Burrow decided to go off for 446 passing yards and 4 more touchdowns with another 50-plus yard touchdown in the Green Bowl, helping Remember the Titans set the Green Bowl point record with a 165.84 to 98.26 win over my great superior Super Bowls, now the Dreamers, of course. And yes, I still have bad nightmares about this as well. What are your thoughts on Joe Burrow taking home the Green Bowl MVP last year?
I mean, first off, what's with all the low passing yard numbers? I mean, 900 yards over 2 weeks. Those are rookie numbers. That's insane. That's nuts. Like, what'd you say? 9 total touchdowns, was it?
Yeah.
For the last 2 weeks,
he had eight total touchdowns. 2 of them 50-plus yards. So that's
okay.
Nuts.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's talk about somebody going off. Like that's that moment right there. And I know you probably had to be swearing at your TV every time that Burrow touched the ball.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was I mean, you saw that score. It was insane. Like it was like an hour into the noon games and I was like, well, I'm not winning.
Yeah. And that's a bitterness that you hold on to all day too.
Yes.
Like that's a tough one. It's one of those moments like I've never played this fantasy football again. That's it. I'm done. Because somebody else is always going to do that. Yeah. For sure. And so I don't lose my video. I'm not going to go back to my text message. But definitely the first option. He was well deserving of a MVP for that. I mean,
A good solid's hope, or a good hope is worth a boatload of certainty.
yeah,
So.
absolutely. And I'm sorry, Doctor Who was never my thing, so I never caught on with that. Although I am intrigued to watch and watching it. I think I watched the first episode where these mannequins were coming to life or
Yeah,
something like that.
you should find the classic series on. They have them. They have it on BritBox. I think you could get through
Oh,
Prime, but
we have BritBox. Okay, my mom loves those.
the classic ones are great. John Pertwee, Tom Baker, any of those episodes you should watch. They're very fun. It kind of flows through the story more. Yes, there are some slow parts, but I think that they're great. Like they're just old school 1970s sci-fi in Britain, you know.
Hey, you know what? I should give that a try. I have always been intrigued, of with all that stuff.
So, what about this year? You think Austin Eckler is going to win you an MVP after what he did last week?
For my team, I mean, there's a couple of different ones. If Jalen Hurts plays, I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up. I mean, I've seen him put anywhere up between 20 and 40 plus points this year, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him. When you think about Eckler and how he's played this year, he's been solid all year long. I mean, definitely last week was my MVP, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if I play Josh Jacobs, which I probably will, because if I bench him, it's gonna he's gonna go off for 112 points. So, so he it wouldn't surprise me to see him go off, but because he's put up a 50-point game. But I'm going to tell you who I think might actually get and I know it's Tua might not play, but I think Tyreek Hill might go off this weekend.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it would be a consideration because Bridgewater's throwing him passes. So
right,
if he goes off, you gotta factor it in. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, and he doesn't need a 50-yard pass down the field to break one.
Mm-hmm.
All he needs a little swing pass, and he can go for 50 yards to, from 0 to 100 miles an hour. He's so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of different contenders. The one I think quite potentially the Tyreek Hill might be my MVP this week.
Ooh, that's a good one. I got to stick with my studs: Jefferson, Waddle, maybe Chubb, even though he's got a tough matchup. It's hard to go away from them. They've done well for me all year. Why not one more week? We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, thanks you for coming on. A lot of success this season. That's always fun. Before we finish this, though, I need you to give me your best trash talk on why you're going to beat me in the Green Bowl.
All right, I'm going to beat you because Mark Andrews is the best tight end in the NFL. I know I've been eating my words all year about this, so no, my team is going to get hot at the right moment. I'm getting all my players back. You're doomed. You are doomed. Yeah, I'm not good at trash talk. I never have been. If I was actually playing football, I'd start saying things about family members and whatnot. But I'm not going to do that here. But no, I'm not the best at trash talking.
Yeah. No, I hear you. For me, as I said before on this show, I feel like I'm destined to win this thing at some point. So why not this year? Why won't Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle go off? Why won't my rookie running backs make Eckler and Jacobs look like amateurs? Why won't Brock Purdy put in the greatest Mr. Irrelevant fantasy performance of all time and lead my squad to victory? Reality, you got to think about that. But hey, my dreamers have to dream, right?
That's it. And I got a reason why they're not going to do that is because you're playing against the elite mother Tuckers. That's why.
Yeah, that's great, but it's going to be awesome when San Francisco stuffs Josh Jacobs.
Hey, teams all year have been falling to me, so everybody thinks they're trying to give me their A game, and they see the name and they're like, you know what, we're going to step back for a minute here. That's why you're going to fall short. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to leave it all on the playing field. I think it's going to be a great one.
Absolutely.
It's going to be good. I'm glad we're in this. I think it's going to be fun, and I think other people are going to enjoy our battle. To be honest, they're going to be watching, see what happens.
Absolutely, I think this is again. This is. I thought it was going to come down to me and you all year too, because we've been at the top consistently, and let's face it, we've earned our right to be here. I mean, I had a little bit of an easier path to get here, but by about 10 or 15 points. And I think if I would have played either of you guys last week, I would have lost. So I had a little bit of a lot easier of a path than you did. But all in all, I'd say we had the right two teams in the finals for sure.
Yeah, and it's gonna be great. That's the content for the show. Hope you had a blast like all of us. Just 2 more episodes left. Isn't that insane to think about? Wednesday and Friday next week, we'll get the exciting conclusion to both our league results and with our battle against the Shadows and Ralu Azath. Till next time, salut. And refresh your minds with how we got to the Green Bowl with the updated bracket.